Alrighty guys, welcome back to another one. In today's video, we're putting together a 2 7/8 inch 10 gauge shell here. Now, this is going to be a 1.5 ounce assembly of copper plated number 4 shot, which has many uses. It's a bit heavy for squirrel, but longer range squirrel, rabbit, it'll totally work for that. Adjust shot size accordingly. Mainly this is intended for turkey and pheasant. Now, obviously, if you go for turkeys, use a turkey choke. If you go for pheasants, maybe use a modified, improved modified, depending on how far away you know you might be taking your shots. Use the appropriate choke. I'd go for a modified myself inside 40 yards. I'd also maybe go with a number 5, but I don't have any copper-plated 5s. I have chilled 5s from Avid Waterfowler. You guys go check him out on here. He's pretty cool. Those are soft lead pellets though. I like the harder high antimony and copper plated shot better. So I'm going to use 4s here. We have put together so many 2 7/8 inch 10 gauge shells, and you guys don't even get to see them. We just shoot them for fun at the range, usually at Clay's or something, just to have fun with. But this is something we actually put together a lot of. And this is a 2 7/8 inch Remington Hall. Obviously, it started life as a 3.5, but we fired it enough to where the crimp split, which takes a while with these. These are these Remington 10 gauge 3.5 inch Halls are probably, well, they are the toughest straight wall Hall on the planet. They last many firings, around 10, and that's usually what you get with stuff like a AA or Nitro 27. The premium tapered Halls, those last a long time, and so do these. Now, I should also mention that this is not a obviously tested recipe here. Usually whatever we're doing here is not tested, not all the time. And this is definitely not a published or tested recipe, and you should assume that it's not safe for an older gun, like a Winchester Model 1901, something like that, any of the old doubles that have 2 7/8 inch chambers. This is probably not safe for those either, but any modern 10 gauge made, with a 3.5 inch chamber, it'll handle this just fine. It's probably in the 9,000 PSI range, which is still fine for a 1901. I've seen claim that those are, you shouldn't use more than 10,000 PSI in those, or go with, shoot, whatever. But the 10 gauge pressure cap is 11,000 PSI, which is crazy. But I'm pretty sure it's for those older guns, and this is going off my calculations and experience and looking at tested recipes, about 9,000 to 10,000 PSI. However, again, it's not tested, so probably don't use this in an older gun. That being said, once again, Remington 3.5 inch 10 gauge Hall. This is, I don't know how many times fired, but it is trimmed to 2.88 inches, which is 2 7/8, and I have skived it with a knife. So, obviously, this is getting a fold crimp on it. We're not doing a roll, although you could totally roll this if you wanted to. If you roll, it'll actually drop pressure a little bit, and you'll lose a little bit of speed, but we are using this stuff right here, my favorite of all time. Number of the day is 30, for those of you interested. We are using a Winchester 209. Hope you guys can see it. The dust is already in here. I don't want to spill it, but that is a Winchester 209. If you don't have those, a Shadite will be fine. Any primer should really be fine in this, but be aware that European primers like a Fiocchi, Rio, Noble Sport, even the old Wolf primers, if those are even still around, those are sized bigger than a Winchester or a Shadite or a Federal Remington primer. Those will open up your primer pockets and you won't be able to use American primers with them anymore. The Shadite primers, as of about 6 years ago, are now USA size, so that's awesome. The wad we're using is a TPS wad, and I have it trimmed down to 2.7 or 1.77 inches, which is barely more than 1 3/4. Inside that, we are using a 1/4 inch 20 gauge felt wad. That's all that is, just a 1/4 inch cushion wad. Use felt, fiber, cork, whatever you have, it'll all work the same. We will need to slit this wad. I'm going with a 4-pedal full cut. I have Gary Caskey's adjustable 10 gauge wad slitter set to do a full cut, and obviously 4 pedals. And guys, I also use Gary's trimmers to trim this hull down. I failed to mention that. The only reason I didn't show me trimming that is because it's a little bit time consuming for the video, and I just want to make it nice and simple, straightforward. Gary's trimmers work amazingly well. As you can see, the top of that hull is perfectly even. You can't ask for no better than that. So facebook.com/gary.d.caskey if you want any of his tools. He makes really, really nice stuff. Anyway, again, dust is already in there, and once again, the number of the day is 30. So inside the wad, we need our 1/4 inch cushion wad. Again, I'm using felt, and again, 20 gauge. After that, you can see this is very, very simple. 1.5 ounces, ounce and a half of copper plated number 4s. You could use any size lead shot you want. If you use the smaller sizes like a 6 or 7, 7.5, 8, well, then you will need a little bit more filler wad than just a 1/4 inch. You probably will need a 3/8 inch. But for 4s, the 1/4 inch is perfect. I'd imagine for 5s it would work just fine too, but I'll try to show you. Really hard to see, I know, but all of the shot is inside the wad, and the shot height is level with the top of the wad. Can't get any better than that. Now, you can use buffer if you want to. Since this is just going to be range food, I'm not going to add any buffer, but you totally could if you wanted to. If you add buffer, why not try to smack a turkey with it? Actually, you know what? I am going to add buffer here, just because. Let's see, buffer scoop. Using a Lee 2.2 cc dipper. Drop 1 scoop in, and see if that's enough. Vibrating massager here. Settle that down. Luckily, this thing takes no time to settle buffer. That is going to need a little bit more, probably about a half a scoop. Right there. Settle that down, almost dropped it. And yes, that is all we need. I'll set this down gently. I have realized that if I bump the bar too hard, it actually causes a loud pop in on the camera. So I'll try going forward to avoid bumping the bar or setting stuff down on it really hard, because that's just bad for audio. Speaking of that, the clicking sound you guys have been hearing, turns out that's very, very likely to be the fluorescent lighting that we use in this house. For all I know, this is LED, but my light up here for the videos, it could be contributing to it too, although the older videos did not have that issue, and I've been using that ever since I started the channel. And the clicking noises have been going on for about a year, so it's probably just the fluorescent light bulbs. We'll switch to LED as soon as we can and see if that helps it. But we are doing a 6-point crimp. Obviously, Lee Lodahl converted to do 10 gauge. Backstation is the 6-point crimp, and the pre-crimp looks perfect. That actually might be a smidge too much. But after that, we have the Rebasator. And this is the OMB Rebasator, not the GOP. And it pretty much went ahead and nearly closed that up, but final crimp it, and we'll be good to go. Actually, that needs a little bit more on this side, so we'll give it a little bit more on that side. Alright. Now, final crimp. If you guys don't have a Rebasator, I highly recommend getting one, because they make crimps like that. That is flawless. There's no hole in it. The top is perfectly even, no castling, no waviness, no nothing going on. That is a perfect crimp. Again, we throw together a lot of 2 7/8 inch 10 gauge and also 2 3/4 inch. I think I have a haul in here somewhere. Yes, right here. It's already put together, but this is 2 3/4 inch 10 gauge. Again, with a fold crimp on it, 2 7/8 inch and 2 3/4. Obviously, only 1/8 inch of difference there. The Browning BPS, which is a pump, if you didn't know, will cycle a 2 3/4 inch shell with a fold crimp just fine, no issues at all. Being able to cycle 2 3/4 inch, it'll obviously cycle 2 7/8 inch just fine too. Now, a size we don't do for 10 gauge is 3 inch, unless we're doing maybe a slug, something like that. But we usually go for 2 7/8 inch whenever we have to trim down a 10 gauge haul. Hoist rack. Anyway, guys, I guess that's going to end this one here. Please like and subscribe. We always appreciate that. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section below, and we'll get back to you. And if you want to, go check out our Patreon. A link to that will be in the description below. Really helps us out. A link to our Instagram, Rumble, and merch store will also be in the description below. But other than that, you guys take it easy. We'll see you in the next one.